Guten Morgen, bonjour, boker tov, buenos dias, however you say it. Good morning, kiddos. Week 2. Beginning of week 2, remote learning. 2 weeks ago, this week and next week, then we are back in school for the A-Day, B-Day, and I'm excited about that. But let's go ahead and start digging into this week. And I know the first thing people are going to say, Mr. Bullens, you've already taught us a lot of this. Of course, there's a lot of review. Number one, we have a quiz this week, so why would I not go back over the words? And number two, most of these words are brand new to us, and I don't expect people to remember them after hearing them just a few times in a week. So of course we're going to review words and repeat them very often. So let's go through this part very quickly. You can watch the video at home on your own. And again, we are in ecosystems, and your goal in all of this is to be able to come out of this saying that you can identify all of the unique factors in an ecosystem in order to tell me how they work together and how they make each ecosystem and biome unique. And we know that ecosystems are all the living and non-living things in an environment, all the living and non-living things in an environment, including their interactions with each other. Now, one big thing that we had a little bit of a hiccup with last week, people were trying to list some abiotic factors, and they were saying things like pencils and desks and pillows and stuffed animals. And while true, those things are not living, they're not in an ecosystem, and they have zero interaction with the outside ecosystem. I'm talking about things that make a difference in an ecosystem, like sunlight, water, soil, temperature. Those things make a huge difference in an ecosystem, and those are the most important abiotic factors, the non-living factors. Biotic versus abiotic. Okay, we have two types of factors. We have living biotic, and we have non-living abiotic. And we have to remember that abiotic factors are sun, water, temperature, and soil. And again, I'm joking with you here, but did you really just say rocks? If you put rocks, it's not incorrect, but that definitely has far less interactions in an ecosystem than sun, water, temperature, and soil. I think those are the most important factors to look at. You can watch this video on your own. You can take the quiz. Okay, we got 4 questions today. Sunlight is a factor in ecosystem. What type of factor is sunlight? And hopefully you're able to go through and answer these short, quick questions. Producers, consumers, and decomposers. And obviously we could probably throw scavengers in there as well. 3 important biotic factors. Now, all of these things are alive. A lot of people didn't think that grass and trees and things were alive. They are biotic. 3 important biotic factors in an ecosystem are producers, consumers, and decomposers. Each occupies a different niche. You can pronounce this niche or niche, which means they have a very specific role or job in the ecosystem. And they cannot live without each other. Producers make their own food from sunlight. Plants make their own food. That's important because your first level consumers, your herbivores, the first person to eat in a food chain, they get their energy from the grass. So the sunlight gives its energy to the grass. Here comes the little rabbit. The rabbit eats the grass. It gets energy. So the rabbit has some energy stored in it. Along comes the fox. He eats the rabbit. He gets energy from the rabbit. And then if something like a bear ate the fox, it would get energy. That's a food chain. It's important to understand that these biotic factors work with each other. Brand new vocabulary word. This is one I want you to pause on. Maybe watch this portion of the video more than once. Niche or niche is the role an organism has, the job an organism has in its community. Example, a bear eats deer. And you think, well, Mr. Bullens, that's not important. Oh, no, that's extremely important. It keeps the deer population down. Because let's think about, what do deer eat? Well, deer eat grass. If there's nothing keeping the deer population down, the deer population would explode. There would be too many deer. They would eat all of the grass, and then we've exceeded the carrying capacity in that area, and the deer would move on to somewhere else and eat all the grass. You can't have that. It's important that bears eat deer. It's important that they eat fish. It's important that bears eat berries so that the berry bushes don't grow out of control. You're thinking, well, Mr. Bullens, that's its job. It is its job. It keeps the ecosystem in balance. It keeps it in balance. It keeps that carrying capacity within the normal levels. So it is important. Spiders are another one. I think people think, oh, spiders are creepy. Yes, in some ways, true. But spiders eat insects. If it weren't for spiders in the wild, there would be so many mosquitoes and other insects biting us, and diseases would be more rampant. for us and for other animals. But spiders eat those small insects and keep their populations under control, so they're not eating all the leaves. They're not biting us or anything like that, like mosquitoes. Spiders have a job. Everything has a job. So it's important to understand that niche, if you see that, or niche, if you want to pronounce it like the British people do in the cool videos we watch, it is the role or the job an organism has in an ecosystem. Okay? So you have to remember this word. It's very important. It comes up very, very often. Producers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Listen, producers are alive. They are biotic. They are the only thing that makes their own food. A lot of people last week said that the sun is a producer because it produces light. That's not necessarily true. In grammar, it may sound correct. But when we're talking producers, we're talking about something that can make its own food. The sun, number one, isn't living. It doesn't need to make food. It helps plants make food. But the sun is not the producer. The plants are the ones producing energy from the sunlight. So plants are producers. They make their own food. Consumers. Now we know that there are 3 types of consumers, and we label consumers by the type of food that they eat. If you eat just plants, you are an herbivore. If you eat just meat, then you are a carnivore. And if you eat plants and you eat meat, then you are listed as an omnivore. And we need to make sure that we don't get those mixed up. Number one, because there's a quiz tomorrow. Number two, because this is important for you to understand as we move forward in our ecosystems unit. Another quiz for you to take. I don't know what slide this is, but it's another quiz for you to take. 7 questions. You can get that done at some point. Decomposers. Decomposers and scavengers are not the same. Decomposers do not eat the bones and meat and fur of animals to get their energy. They break down dead things and they end up making good soil. Scavengers just eat the bones and the meat and the fur because that's their food source. Decomposers have a different niche. They have a different job. Their job is to break it down and make good soil. They do that when they start breaking that down, they're releasing all of the nutrients back into the soil. So it's important to understand the difference between decomposers and scavengers. Here's a fun video on decomposers that you can watch. New vocabulary word for this week, individual. Individual. Now, if you look at here, there is one tiger. An individual is one of a particular species. One tiger is an individual. One penguin is an individual. One fish is an individual. One bird is an individual. Whatever animal you happen to choose this week for your project is an individual, and it means just one of them in that area. So you need to remember that because that's extremely important. So looking at my notes, I think I've actually gone a little bit further than I really intended to go this morning, but I'm going to stop here at individual, one of a particular species, because I think it's number one good to maybe reflect back on some of our vocabulary words from last week, especially since there's a quiz tomorrow. And number two, to start to get a hold of this new word niche, because that's going to be in our project as well this week, and maybe start to understand what that means, that each animal has and each plant and each bacteria and decomposer and scavenger, they have a role, they have a job, they have a niche that they fulfill in the ecosystem. And without each organism fulfilling its particular niche, the ecosystem is going to crumble and fall. So doing their job is very important. So we'll stop here, and we will see you again tomorrow.